Brandon, you had the operations at Curiosity Lab, which was just mentioned, which is the US first true smart city technology proving background and as well lab. So can you tell us a bit how it works, and as well how you look at the concept of smart cities and how both of you interact? Because I know that your task it's massive, especially Jennifer, in terms of putting the storytelling and explain these and getting the budgets. But your task as well, Branham, is really not small, because you have to explain these and make it happen. And one of the challenges that we have is legacy systems, lack of knowledge about these things, and actually there's one of the things I've been finding out, that's why I created actually citiesabc.com, is that there's very small global standards. Well, I'm talking national or locals. So the lack of global standards creates a big of a mess, because you can spend millions of dollars and everything, you have to do it again. And then of course there's all the work of even spending the money, or first of all getting the money and then spending it and then preaching it, or at least explaining. So if you could explain the Curiosity Labs and how both of you work, probably can answer a bit each of that part.
Curiosity Lab, it was unique in the structure that it was set up. I mentioned Peachtree Corners is 50,000 residents, but we're also 50,000 jobs. So we are a regional job hub. And so the focus of that was around the creating job growth within the city, but using what cities have that no other agency can, right? Roads, sidewalks, right away, and public infrastructure. So we took that opportunity to say, we see this missing gap in the evolution of technology's integration into communities. And that was going from a closed lab environment where you could, control all the variables, but maybe you weren't quite ready for a downtown Dallas. Maybe you needed that intermediate step to really, funnel out some of the issues when you introduce technology to the public. And so we took the public infrastructure, enhanced it with fiber, with 5G, some of the supporting technologies like C-V2X and video analytics, and then open that infrastructure up for private companies in other cities to come and use free of charge. Because we know for us to really get to the end point where we're going to go, this has to be an open collaboration that, like Jennifer said, is to bring all of these to the table. And how do we do that? And that's by the use of public infrastructure. And so we'll have different initiatives. We've got one, right? We've got an autonomous vehicle last mile connectivity project that's going on that's integrating with C-V2X. So that's a focus of multiple communities and part of what we're working on one of our initiatives. And then we've got just a pure C-V2X deployment. What does C-V2X look like? And that's connected vehicle environment for the safety of bicyclists and pedestrians, and how do we take advantage of that technology? You think about standards, right? C-V2X actually has a pretty great baseline of a standard of how you can operate a technology that shares across multiple platforms. And so if you build upon cases like that, when you start to look at video analytics, Jennifer talked about privacy, right? And the community's acceptance of privacy with technology. So we're working with a company that's using fixed LiDAR on the intersections to give you analytics, but you removed any privacy concern because you don't actually know anything other than that was a car, that was a person. So integrating these opportunities into the environment and then sharing those ideas with other cities. And that's where Jennifer and I saw a great opportunity for our two organizations to come together. I'll let Jennifer kind of talk about how that's going to look.
No, I'd be happy to. And to echo the creation of those environments, the first project that we did with the Dallas Innovation Alliance was a 6-block corridor living lab. And the way that we were able to do that, as a separate entity from the city, was through an agreement with the city that allowed us to operate as an agent for the public good in the right of way. And so it lifted a lot of barriers for us to be able to test quickly. And I think in terms of making that case and being able to scale, part of our job was to figure out what worked and what didn't. And even within the same use case, whether that was parking, whether that was people counting, whether that was some of these, we wanted to test different forms of technology to see which one is more accurate, which one is more cost effective at scale. Is it cameras or is it the hockey puck beacon sensors? And similarly also, I made it a point to tell the company and to tell residents, all I know is that a human passed by. I don't know your gender, I don't know your age, I don't know what platform you're using. The important thing to me is to be able to understand and share with small businesses in that neighborhood, when is there unexpected spikes in pedestrian activity? And they were actually able to modify their appetizers and their happy hour specials and times to capture this random traffic that happened between 2 and 3 p.m. on Thursdays. And so we saw business revenue increase. So if there's really that local economic small business component, and how are you supporting them and giving them the tools and sharing the data with them so that they're enabled to make those changes that can hopefully, help support them and help with their growth. And so I think with us in Peachtree and Curiosity Labs, it's really about, number one, which use cases are they testing, which are we testing? Some we're doing concurrently, it's a similar piece, and how do we learn from that, given the environments and the technologies used? And for example, what am I heavily focused on that's on the horizon, and perhaps I have some lessons learned to share back and forth. And one that we've been extraordinarily focused on is that broadband, both infrastructure and equity. How are we making sure that all of our residents have the same access? How are we making sure they know how to use it? In addition to how are our cities and the region at large going to invest this massive, we haven't talked about the federal funding opportunities and what that means for our work yet, but how do we make sure that that money is spent as strategically and wisely as possible? And that involves a lot of collaboration across entities in terms of matching up and designing that fiber infrastructure and whatnot. So I've learned some things that did not work, at scale and would not have made sense financially. And then, I've learned some things that we're able to take that data and extrapolate it and kind of hand it to the city and say, here's what we recommend, here's what the projected savings and efficiencies and on and on. Here's what we think this will do. And that does a lot of the legwork up front for what I call the above my pay grade decisions, where we're trying to get full projects done across the city.